Coming to you live from George Finnie Stadium in wet and very cold Berea, Ohio. Welcome inside our coverage of Baldwin Wallace Soccer. Tonight they've got the Wilmington Quakers in a must-win game for the Yellow Jackets if they want to make the OAC tournament at the end of the year. I'm Brendan Gulick alongside Cole McDaniel, and we'd like to begin by apologizing that we can't give you some crowd noise tonight. If you can't figure it out on your own, it is awful outside. The weather is pretty much right where we left off last time. Last time the Yellow Jackets were out of the field, and unfortunately, it's blowing at the press box, and it would get our microphone wet. So it's just going to be the two of us tonight, but hopefully we'll still be able to give you the picture the way you'd like. Well,
and pretty much, Brendan, I think it's one of those things where. Is it something that always has to do with when Wilmington and BW come against each other? Because I remember the home game for the men's last year, that was the game that there was hail, and you had the ice falling from the sky.
They had it down on the ladies' side. They had it down in Southern Ohio, too.
Yep.
No doubt about it. Well, Wilmington comes in, and they've played pretty well lately. 8-5-1 on the season, and a team that, frankly, thinks they could make a little bit of a run. Right now, if the tournament were to start today, they would be in the OAC tournament because they're 3-3 in conference play. Wins over Marietta, Mount Union, and Heidelberg. They lost to Muskingum, Ohio Northern, and Otterbein. Still Capital and John Carroll to play. Meanwhile, the Yellow Jackets, they got a point on the road when they were able to tie John Carroll earlier this week. Anytime you can get a result on the road, you'll take it. But I don't think there's any doubt the Yellow Jackets know they are in a must-win situation every time they go from here on out.
Well, the Yellow Jackets knew it was going to be a tough game at John Carroll. Of course, they really needed to get a win to help them out, but still a point does help put them in the right direction. It also is just beneficial because the results hadn't been going their way. They do that on the road, and then they really need to come back and get the win tonight, but at least they're coming off of a draw, which is a better result than they've had previously.
Wilmington, again, 8-5-1 on the season as we get underway tonight. They are in their lime neon green uniforms, and the Yellow Jackets will be in white. We'll give you the starting lineups here momentarily. This Wilmington side has not necessarily struggled to put up goals. We've seen some good goal games from them, especially early in the season, and they're kind of hoping that they can be an upper echelon, middle-of-the-pack team in the league this year. I think it's pretty clear-cut. Otterbein and Ohio Northern have been the top two women's soccer programs in the OAC, but no reason to believe that Wilmington couldn't be that third or fourth team in the league. That's certainly their goal here going the rest of the way.
Yeah, and I think, obviously, as you mentioned, there are a couple top teams at the top of the conference, but there are a lot that fall in that middle group and are really fighting and battling, and I think Wilmington does fall right in that category. Obviously, they can win games. They have done that so far. They're just not nearly the level of those top two caliber, really perennial power teams.
Decent little play near side from Maddie Scott, but she was dispossessed. Let's give you the starting lineups first for the Yellow Jackets and their senior goalkeeper, Emma Bruno. As BW runs up the far side of the field, that's Kayla Webb out there. Chipping this one into the middle. Dangerous ball and a good play by Lauren Galloway, the goalkeeper for Wilmington. Also starting for the Yellow Jackets tonight, Morgan Gray, Amanda Donahue, Kayla Webb, Kenna Poptic, Josie Fenn, Brandy Philippi, Alex Guido, Courtney Marzinski, Sydney Graneman, and Maddie Farrell. The Yellow Jackets are glad to have Kenna Stones back. She did play earlier this week after missing a few games with an injury. And Josie Fenn will start at left back. Those are the two most notable changes for Baldwin Wallace. We've seen lots of Josie Fenn throughout the course of the year, but not quite as much lately. She has had kind of an up-and-down season. But expect Morgan Gray and Amanda Donahue to anchor the center back spots tonight. This ball is driven in across. Remember, when it's low and raining like this with wet turf, the ball is oftentimes going to skip. So hopefully we'll see some play on the ground that might benefit Baldwin Wallace on the attack.
Yeah, and I've mentioned it so many times this season because it seems like this women's team has played a lot of games so far at home in the rain, and that's when it's crucial to play it low and driven on the ground, and that will cause it to skip. Now it's one of those things where you'll have to take a little bit of heat off of your passes so your teammates can catch up to the ball and get to it. But as for striking it on goal or putting a cross through the box, it's one of those situations where it's best to just drive it low and let the ground do what it does and skip it and put some more speed behind it.
The wind is very much blowing directly at the camera as you see it at home across the field from far side to near. It is 49 degrees with a steady rain that is not projected to let up all evening long. It's pretty much sitting right over top of Northeast Ohio right now. So both teams will try to figure out how to deal with it as best they can and recognize that any mistake could be magnified. You got to be extra certain to be careful. Starting lineup for Wilmington. I mentioned Lauren Galloway is their starting goalkeeper. Abby Spurk, Elizabeth Matthews, Maddie Scott, Haley Burge, Heidi Edens, Madison Weideman, Peyton Watson, Courtney Ryan, Mackenzie Weaver, and Amy Johnson, all starting this evening for the Quakers. And that ball rolls out near side, too far out of Courtney Marzinski's reach. No score, 5th minute. Here comes Scott on the attack. Plays out wide to the right. Wiedemann. Couldn't really bend it toward the middle and cracks it well out of play.
Yeah, and one thing I want to point out, too, that when you were going through the starting lineups of BW and the Yellow Jackets got a cross in, that was already improved from the Yellow Jackets from what we've seen before. We talked about how they're rushing it, getting forward, and almost panicking and putting in a cross, and nobody's in the box to get to it. Kayla Webb was out there on the right-hand side. She waited, she put in the cross, and it was dangerous. Goalkeeper was able to come and get it, but there were people in the box. So as long as the women can continue to do that, there's an opportunity to actually score some goals today from the run of play.
Haley Burge and Courtney Ryan, the two center backs for Wilmington, tasked with trying to keep the Yellow Jackets out of the middle of the park. As that one went across, another example of what you're just referencing there.
Yeah, and that's another dangerous searching ball, and that one I like from Webb. She played it low. It was right in at the 6. Marzinski not able to get there because, of course, it skipped off hard. But if that one was coming back just a little bit more and directed a little less towards the end line and back towards the field of play, that one could have easily been a goal at the back post.
Jackets 8-8-1 on the season. And in conference, things have not gone very well. 1-4-1. Lone victory came at Muskingum, and they picked up a point against John Carroll last time out. The good news is they are playing better lately after having a front-loaded schedule with those really 3 tough games early, Capital, Northern, and Otterbein. The disappointing loss was the 2-0 decision against Heidelberg, where they were the better team, but Heidelberg found a way to score twice.
Yeah, and sometimes that happens. Sometimes you can possess in a game, and, this team we talked about before this season, they've struggled sometimes getting goals from the open run of play. So if they're not getting something off of the set piece and haven't pieced it together yet on the run of play, it's a little hard to get the goals going. So no matter how well they play, you have to make something happen in the final third. Unfortunately, they weren't able to, and Heidelberg was able to walk out of here with 3 points.
Kayla Webb had it pulled right off her foot. That's a really nice play by the left center back, Courtney Ryan, who stepped up to Kayla Webb. And now the Quakers in transition the other way in the 8th minute. Knocked out a play by Donahue. And a throw-in coming for Heidi Edens. Head coach of the Yellow Jackets, Jim Woitkin, in his 3rd year, trying to lead this team back to the tournament, while Steve Spurk, the 28th year head coach for the Quakers, on the other side, has his team very much in the thick of OAC tournament conversation. Top 6 out of the 10 will find their way into postseason play. Jackets started the day right now in 7th. Oh, good play. Marzinski finds her way open, but a clear offside flag goes up. I think Marzinski wasn't expecting that ball to come all the way through to her.
Yeah, and I think it was a little bit surprising. I think Webb played it in the path of Graneman, and I don't know if Graneman let that go intentionally or what she was actually trying to do, but she just got the very slightest touch on the tip of her foot, and that slight deflection turned it into scooting past a couple Wilmington players, and Marzinski definitely caught off guard as she was offsides back post.
Yellow Jackets know that 1 week from today is the last game of the regular season, and if they want their campaign to extend beyond next Saturday at home against Marietta, they've got to come up with, I would think, the bare minimum in order to get in the tournament has to be 6 points. I think they need some real help in front of them if they only get 6 points with 2 wins here in the last 3 games. But I'm more under the impression that 6 points is not going to be enough.
They have to win out.
That they've got to get to 4 total wins.
Yep.
I don't think it's mathematically impossible, but it is really, really difficult. The draw on the road, especially against a John Carroll team that's going to finish above them, if they get into tiebreakers, that could help.
It slightly helps, but it doesn't exponentially help
Right.
in that point. It's one of those things where just because they got a draw there doesn't mean they can win less games. They probably still have to win the same amount of games. That 1 point almost might just serve as an opportunity to finish 1 point ahead of somebody when it comes down to the final.
Right now,
decision.
Otterbein, Northern, Capital, John Carroll, Wilmington, Heidelberg across the conference. Heidelberg 2-5. Baldwin Wallace and Marietta are each 1-4-1. Webb trying to play it through the left-hand side, and they just get to it. Marzinski got there. I think that's going to be a goal kick. Yep, off Courtney.
And that's well done defensively to get over and win the goal kick there, not conceding a corner or a throw, but playing it off of Marzinski. And that's kind of textbook defense. If you have an opportunity to clear it out and hit the player coming at you, it's just like in basketball, throwing it off of somebody and letting it go out of bounds then and getting the ball back for your team.
Right back to Marzinski here. Good footwork from Courtney. Beats a defender to her left. Gets the low cross off. Boy, some serious collision in the box. The ball pinballed away. I think Lauren Galloway is probably a bit fortunate. And I hope Kayla Webb's all right. She went racing with her back of her head down to the turf there. Sometimes the terminology head over heels isn't appropriate because it wasn't a somersault, but boy, she went down hard and getting tripped in the box there.
Yeah, and that happened so fast, and it was one of those things where in real time from up here you couldn't really tell who got the actual touch. I couldn't tell if it was Philippi coming over or if it was actually Webb who was able to get that touch, but ball skated away, and really that's the ball that Marzinski played that needs to be played for the Yellow Jackets to score. As long as it's right there in front of the keeper, all it takes is somebody to come up and tap it in. That will be effective all game.
Couldn't agree more. That's as dangerous a ball as the Yellow Jackets can play in those kinds of situations. Another Wilmington throw-in. Well, hopefully our audience is larger than normal tonight because I think most folks, at least locally here, have decided that sitting in this weather was not their first priority this evening. It's a fairly quiet night here at the stadium, although admittedly there are a good number of umbrellas. A friends and family crowd. We're in the 13th minute, and the Yellow Jackets have a free kick from a pretty good spot. It'll be Morgan Gray to take it. I beg your pardon. Not Gray. Instead, it's going to be Poptic.
Yeah, and I think this is one that it's a good distance, and if I were Poptic, I would just look to hit this. I would maybe try to go low and see if it skates by.
Kenna does go low. Couldn't quite get it past the wall. Was deflected out by Amy Johnson.
Although she wasn't able to get past the wall, I think that's the right look. If she was able to put it another foot just to the right of the wall, I do think that would have been one of those where as soon as it hits the ground, it's going to pick up speed, and it would have been tough for the goalkeeper because especially those low ones with the wall, goalkeeper's going to see it late.
Webb was offside out in the corner. They play it back to Kayla Webb wide on the right flank. This is Guido. Graneman. And Galloway picks it up. 14th minute, no score. Well, we haven't mentioned her name a lot, but Courtney Ryan, one of the center backs for Wilmington, is a very aggressive player. And she's got 4 yellow cards on the season. There are only 2 players in the country that have been put in the book more than Courtney Ryan, which means one of 2 things. Either she's been caught in some awkward situations, or she really doesn't take anything from anybody and is willing to stick her nose in there. Either way, Courtney Ryan, a sophomore out of Tippecanoe High School over in Vandalia in a Dayton suburb. She certainly appears to be a tough customer in the middle of the field. Here comes Wilmington up the offensive end. This one's lobbed ahead toward Wiedemann. Marzinski. Checked up on her and stayed in. Abby Spurk pushes it forward. And an easy play for Bruno, although is there really an easy play on a night where it's windy and raining? You can see some of the most routine plays all of a sudden not look so routine. Did you watch the LA Galaxy LAFC semifinal the other night?
Yeah, I caught pieces and parts around some NBA basketball starting off as well.
It was one of the more unbelievable games in Major League Soccer history, and frankly, probably the most highly anticipated game in MLS playoff history. But there was a pretty routine ball hit to LAFC's keeper that ended up becoming a goal. That ball rolled easily toward Galloway. It was a goal scored by Zlatan and put put the Galaxy on the board, and you could see it right away. The look on the keeper's face was, I can't believe I let that pass. It went right through his legs from an easy angle for a goalie. You just never know.
Right, it even happens at that level sometimes, and sometimes it's a lack of communication. Sometimes it's just an issue, a lack of focus. It does happen at the pro level as well, but you brought that up, and I have to mention that, that's probably about the last we've seen of Zlatan in the MLS probably, and man, what a great treasure to be added to the league here in the U.S.
Only time will tell if he returns, but the fact of the matter is, at 38 years old, he is truly one of the most entertaining strikers of all time. And even though he is, I wouldn't call him a shell of his former self, but he certainly doesn't have the ability to move and have the stamina he used to have. He is still far superior than many other players. And even though he had kind of a quiet playoffs, still found ways to be impactful. He was Hollywood made, no doubt about that.
100% there.
All right, back to the game in front of us. 17th minute. Baldwin Wallace and Wilmington tied 0-0. Josie Fenn ready to throw in. And it'll be another Yellow Jacket throw. What do you think about the way BW's played so far?
I actually think the Yellow Jackets have played pretty well so far in this game. I think even though the last minute or two it's been down in their half, they've kept it down on Wilmington's side of the field more often. They've been putting in better crosses than they have so far for really pretty much the whole season. And I think that's going to open up opportunities in the run of play that we have not seen all season. So I think the first 15 minutes that we saw, that 15-minute stretch, was maybe one of the best 15-minute stretches we've seen this year.
Well, the Yellow Jackets weren't able to put one in the back of the net, but they sure did have some really good looks. 2 shots, 1 technically on goal, and a couple of dangerous crosses from both sides of the field. But Wilmington's back line, anchored by goalkeeper Lauren Galloway, freshman out of Beaver Creek. It's been good enough so far. Galloway's playing in her 15th game this year. She has allowed fewer than a goal per game, saving 87% of the shots that come her way. Pretty good numbers for a freshman in the OAC. Maddie Farrell scoots it back across the middle. No one raced to it, and it ends up finding a teammate after all. Chipped back toward Farrell. She chests it down, takes a shot. It's tipped over the bar. Great look from Maddie Farrell.
And Maddie Farrell's been creative this year. She's been playing a lot right behind the center striker at that center attacking mid spot, and she's quick. She moves around well. She's got good vision, and you saw it right there too with her vision to know to bring it down with her thigh, let it take a one-hop bounce, and went with the half volley, and she struck it sweetly with her laces. It was rising all the way, would have hit the roof of the net. Well done, though, to really get in the way of that and maybe force her to hit a little bit harder. So even though Galloway didn't get a touch on it, she did affect the way that Farrell was able to hit that.
Yeah, I was going to say it ended up being a goal kick, but from this angle, I thought perhaps she was able to punch it over. Either way, certainly a threatening play from Maddie Farrell. Let's see what the Jackets can do from the left-hand side here. Kayla Webb running toward Ryan. And Courtney Ryan does a good job there, shielding her off. Well, Emma Bruno hasn't really been tested yet. And the longer that's the case, the more pressure hopefully is being applied on the other end of the field. Bruno at times this year has been okay. But I think it's fair to point out that has been a frustrating area for the Yellow Jackets in 2019. There's a foul on BW. As a team, the Jackets are giving up almost 2 goals per game. And when you consider that, boy, it at 8-1, giving up 2 goals per game feels a bit fortunate, doesn't it?
It does. It also just shows how easy their non-conference schedule was. They did start off pretty easy in that fashion, but they were also playing a little better than once they got into conference. And I just think when the speed of the game changed a little bit, when the intensity was up, the young group did struggle with that. So I do think that plays a big factor in it. But it is one of those situations where they didn't give up too many goals out of conference, but when they got in conference, I mean, it was a complete light switch. It was completely flipped.
Well, the first 3 games were certainly tough as Galloway goes over to it. That one apparently glanced off a Quaker, so an early corner kick here. 4-1 loss to Capital, 7-1 to Northern, 5-0 at Otterbein. I mean, those were really tough losses for BW. But they have results in each of their last 2, beating Muskingum and drawing John Carroll. So, kind of Poptic will take it. Meanwhile, a couple of substitutions. Sounds like Grace Stork comes on for Wilmington as the kick sails a little bit long. I did not see who came on for the Yellow Jackets. Did you catch it?
It would be Caitlin McGuire here at left wing. Courtney Marzinski sitting on the bench.
Stork comes on for Amy Johnson for Wilmington. Good work from Fenn. This is McGuire here. Oh, great interception. Philippi helping build up. Brandy turns the corner, gets off a cross, spills away from Galloway, and the second time she swallows it up. Good second effort from Alex Guido.
And Alex Guido was somebody who, at the beginning of conference, she was out for a bit with an injury, and I think having her back, and she spent some time at the center forward spot, but I think she offers a composure in the center midfield, and right now, because she's in, that pushes Farrell back, and she's playing at the 10, and Guido really has the ability, I think, to, in the midfield, help keep possession because she's very calm on the ball, and I think that adds another factor in why their offense is doing better so far in this game as well.
It turns out it's a Wilmington throw, which I thought was the right decision. Not sure when, but Carly Brooks checked in somewhere along the way for the Quakers. Brooks is having a pretty good year. Webb hits one into the midfield. Elizabeth Matthews. Team's leading scorer, Taylor Huffman, we have not seen on the field yet tonight, and not sure if we're going to see her, but she has scored 6 times. Right-footed ball into the box. First hit by Edens, and then swallowed up. This comes back to the right back, Spurk, who's pressed forward. Scott couldn't turn the corner without getting loose. 25th minute, still 0-0 between Baldwin Wallace and Wilmington.
I think it's one of those situations where it's not surprising. You kind of come into a game with weather like this, and sure, anything can happen, but a lot of times when it's pouring down rain and the ball's skipping around everywhere, you oftentimes do see teams struggle putting together a quality attack and getting it down there. And I think you see that with both teams here so far, just not being able to put goals in the back of the net. Sure, the Yellow Jackets have had some opportunities, but it's one of those situations where, it's based off of, it can take weird skips. It can just be a bit of a sloppy game as well, but I do have to give them credit. They're doing better so far in this game than we've seen them in past games when it's been rainy and nasty.
Is there something to be said for getting used to playing in it?
You do after a little bit, I think, for sure. I think it's almost one of those things where, you've played in it for so many years. If you're an Ohio soccer player and you're still playing in college in Ohio, in the fall you're going to have some of that weather once you get later on. But I think it's one of those situations where you play so much all the rest of the year, and then once you get back to this time of the year, it's like, oh yeah, I forgot how this was. You play maybe a game or two like that, and then you're back and you're adjusted back to it. So it's almost one of those things where knock off the rust of being adjusted to this type of a game.
Well, isn't this a welcome sight? Baldwin Wallace bringing in Kenna Stones. Kenna Stones is, in many people's argument, Baldwin Wallace's best offensive option. I recognize Kenna Poptic has scored 4 goals in her career. She's got 10 assists this season, largely because of all the set pieces she has. But Stones is such a dynamic finisher, largely because of her size and physicality, and seeing somewhat limited minutes coming back from an injury, but Kenna Stone's presence on the field makes a monumental difference.
You know what's impressive for Stones? She's been out for a couple games, and she still leads this team in shots, as she is 30 on the year. So even with her being out the last couple games, nobody was able to catch her yet on shots. That's kind of incredible that she had that many already to this point in the season.
It's crazy.
Ahead of the rest of the team.
Some that have caught up. Maddie Farrell's taken 29. Webb and Michelina Rush have taken 26 shots each. Michelina's still dealing with a shoulder injury. She's not available this evening. Perhaps an opportunity here for the Yellow Jackets in the 27th minute. And it goes out of play before Scott can get to it. Along with Cole McDaniel, I'm Brendan Gulick. Thanks for tuning in here this evening on BWYellowJackets.com. And a throw-in. Perhaps you saw or heard the Yellow Jackets and Quakers played football this afternoon on this field. It was a pretty boring first quarter, but the final score was anything but. Jackets were down 3-0 after 1, and they beat Wilmington today. Wait for it, 72-9. That was a wild football game.
And most of those points coming in the fourth quarter with just a craziness. I know that it was the rain started to pick up a little bit harder, and it became a really sloppy game, and the Yellow Jackets kind of got fortunate on some balls loose and able to jump on it in the end zone, for example. And I do think that helped the Yellow Jackets a little bit, but that fourth quarter was one of the more wild fourth quarters I've ever been to, really.
So perhaps some retribution on the mind of the Quakers. Meanwhile, Andrea Scatino comes on. Jackets also bringing on Grace Silvestro. Grace, a freshman from Brunswick. Haven't seen too much from her this year. Only her second game. Well, they just made an announcement over the PA system that it was actually Kaylee DeHaas that came in for Philippi and not Silvestro. DeHaas, a freshman from Tippecanoe High School. And Kaylee also hasn't seen the field a whole lot. This is just her fourth appearance. Still hasn't registered a shot yet.
I'm not sure about that. I do not see DeHaas out there. I see Bella Regal, who's number 32.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Well, we're going to stop relying on Professor Tony Dick, who I'm only having a little fun with here. Tony doing the public address tonight, and frankly, he's doing a good job. First time this season he's hopped on. But maybe he got some...
First time for women's. He's done some men's for us.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, perhaps he got some bad intel. Bella Regal is definitely in the game.
Yeah.
Hopefully they'll get that figured out. Meanwhile, Wilmington making a change, and they're bringing Jenna Victor on. We are in the 29th, check that, 31st minute. McGuire taps it forward. Courtney Ryan clears it away. Controlled for a moment by Regal. And there goes Morgan Gray watching it out of play.
Right there, that's where the Yellow Jackets just need to figure out that it's important to get out of tight areas. You know, when the ball's played to you, open up with your back foot so you're open to the field. You saw that they got trapped in here on the left-hand side. What they really need to do was when the ball's played in, use the back foot, which would really be the left foot in that scenario, open up, play it back into the midfield in the middle, and then go out the other side to open up space. When you get crammed and compact, it's hard to get out of that, and it's hard to generate offense.
Tiffany Hayes comes on. Hayes, a sophomore from Beaver Creek, was a high school teammate of Lauren Galloway as well. Beaver Creek and Wilmington not that far away from each other. I would say it's roughly an hour drive. Good effort from Regal, but couldn't get onto the ball there. Last touch by Haley Burge. I beg your pardon, Burge held it off. It was last touched by Regal. I think I said that backwards. We are in the 32nd minute. Haven't had a lot of offensive looks for either team the last 15 minutes after the Yellow Jackets took a couple of good early shots. Wilmington has only registered one shot all game so far. Jacket throw. And it'll go out of play, staying on this side of the field. Josie Fenn, looking around, decides Regal's their best target. Josie rips one into the middle of the box, and on two hops, Galloway picks it up.
And for the Yellow Jackets, I think one of the most crucial things is just focusing on, you know, even if you're taking a bunch of throws, just focusing on keeping the ball in the Wilmington half because, you know, we talked about how the ball just skips. And Anything could happen. It could deflect around. Even if you just have it down in that end, it's dangerous regardless because of how the weather is. So just focus on getting it down. And I'm not saying just play kickball, bomb the ball down the field, but do what you can to high press and not let Wilmington get out of their own half.
Played back to Bruno. It was not cleared well. Off the woodwork. Oh, Bruno dodges a major bullet.
Yeah, Emma Bruno just got saved by the uprights there on that situation. Completely botched clearance, and Wilmington with an opportunity to finish. And the post was her friend in that situation.
Stolen away by McGuire. Regal on the move. And a Jacket throw in the 35th minute. I'm not really sure what happened there on the failed clearance, but Bruno got awfully lucky.
Well, it looked like she just wasn't able to get the ball up in the air, and it got deflected, and the deflection came straight back in the path of Wilmington's attack, and no defender was really back to deal with it. So it was an easy open shot on goal, and everybody just had to watch and just hope it didn't go in. So one of those situations where it just shows how important getting your clearance up and out really is.
Scatino pulled down. Maybe she was the culprit. Okay. So Courtney Ryan to take a free kick. Headed by Gray. Stones came to it right after Matthews struck it. Knocked away. Just about 9 minutes remaining here in the first half. And the Jackets making another sub. This time Maddie Farrell comes off. And she is replaced by Bella Szymanski.
Now entering for Baldwin Wallace, number 16, Bella Szymanski.
Jacket throw.
Well, I think having Bella in is important. We've seen her here and there this season, but I do think her experience and her size in the midfield is beneficial. But the other thing for her, she's not afraid to take shots. She'll take them anywhere when she's around the 18 and she sees an opportunity. And sometimes we've seen the Yellow Jackets have a tendency to try to pass the ball and get in super close and just try to get like the perfect goal and just want to tap in. But sometimes you just have to take the opportunity and take the shot, and that's something Bella's not afraid to do.
Down in the corner. Good effort from Regal trying to chase after it, but couldn't catch up to it. The rain is maybe letting up just the slightest bit, but it certainly isn't stopping. And it's as windy as it's been all night, swirling a little bit, but in general blowing from the far top right corner of your screen down and toward the bottom left corner. Great opportunity here. Tap to the side, Regal. It was too slow from BW. They had a chance to take a shot quickly. Instead, played off a defender. Kind of Stones hit it with the left foot. Now, disappointing, the Jackets couldn't get a look off. It's those kinds of specific situations that you really miss Rachel Bender.
Yeah, and we've talked about this year of knowing when to speed up and when to slow down. And we've seen them do a better job of slowing down on than putting the cross in today. But in situations like that, that's where you do need to speed up, and that's where they've had a tendency to slow down when they've needed to do the opposite.
Morgan Gray almost had it intercepted. Maddie Scott applying pressure. I think one of my overwhelming thoughts here in this first half watching things is the speed component of the game. This game has not moved very fast. There have been little experiences here and there where BW's occupied some dangerous space, and so it feels like it's moved faster. But I feel like the general environment of the game right now is just not moving very quickly. And we've seen a lot of that particular play you just saw right there. A lot of heavy touches, whether it's off the foot or off the head, balls that go 5-6 yards after hitting somebody. Both teams not valuing possession very well, but I think both teams need to play faster here.
Well, and I think one thing is, obviously this is a crucial game for them, but there is such a thing as thinking too much. And sure, you have to think and you have to make your decisions, but at the same time, there's a benefit of not thinking too much, just going out and doing what you can do and just playing. And sometimes that speeds up the process. You can read something really fast and then be just making the decision, hey, this is, I just need to play. This is an opportunity. I need to make something happen. That will help speed up the game rather than being slow, waiting, looking around, and making your decision.
Courtney Ryan taking a free kick in the 40th minute. Well, that ball really died in the wind. Not particularly well controlled by Spurk, but played too far out in front of Bella Regal. I like that idea, though.
Yeah, and that's one where McGuire could have definitely cut back and played that into the center midfield because Stones and Szymanski were following for support. She probably could have played more of a square ball across the middle. Then they could have gone out the other side, possibly to Webb.
Hit to the middle of the park. No real chance for Szymanski to hit it. Good step over move. Webb launches it off a defender. McGuire. Good dummy from Szymanski. Wilmington gets it away for just a second. Good work from Scatino. Maddie Scott couldn't hold her off. 4 minutes to play before halftime. Matthews spins it ahead. It got by Poptic, but Morgan Gray was there to recover. Otherwise, Tiffany Hayes would have had perhaps a completely free run at the net. Hayes will throw in. Wilmington feeling right now like the clock is definitely an enemy at the end of the half. It was an odd decision there from Matthews to knock that out of bounds. 3:20 to go before the break.
The men's soccer team, 9-8 overall and 2-4 in the OAC, entering today is in action this evening as they travel to Wilmington.
Stones plays it back.
Against Wilmington College at 7 o'clock.
Morgan Gray.
Currently a 1-1 tie. Final home game of the regular season is on Wednesday, October 30th, when the team hosts the
Not
OAC match against
what Burge had in mind on that clearance.
And I complimented the Yellow Jackets about their play in the first 15 and what they did earlier, but you're seeing it shift back to the games prior in weather like this, where it starts just turning into that slow kickball, and they start off well in the first 15. They really actually, it was raining even harder. They were actually handling the elements pretty well, but right now it's switching back to balls just being launched long, time after time, and it's hard to get to it.
2:25 to play. Here's a chance on the left side. McGuire. Goal kick. I think she had a chance to hit that sooner and then waited. All of a sudden it ran out on her.
Well, and I like the decision to wait a little bit more because there wasn't much support in the box. but rather than going towards the end line with your weak foot and trying to wrap around, maybe try to cut back instead and then whip a curling ball in.
1:45 on the clock. Josie Fenn, controlled by Regal. Kayla Webb. Kayla beats Watson to her right. Good move from Webb. Gets a good cross off, and it's directed right at Galloway. Somehow she trapped it between her legs right outside the touchline.
Well, that's not how they teach goalkeeping, but she made the save regardless. So well done by Galloway to make that save and really hold off BW, because that would have been a huge momentum changer and really given the Yellow Jackets an advantage going in at halftime.
Well, they've got less than a minute to play before the break, and Poptic stands over a free kick as the Yellow Jackets spread across the top of the 18. Kenna's got the wind at her back, hangs this one up in the air, comes right back to Poppy, and with the left foot she misses wide right.
Yeah, and I completely get playing it long. Again, that's another situation where they kept Morgan Gray back. Nobody was around them. Honestly, probably could have tapped it to Gray. They could have, the two of them kept possession together and moved forward and maybe found an opportunity. Again, the Yellow Jackets, especially with the straight-on free kick, it's a little hard to get up and win the ball and flick it on. Give the advantage to Wilmington every time in that situation.
7, 6, 5, 4,
5 seconds left in the half.
2, and 1.
And the time expires. Baldwin Wallace and Wilmington scoreless at the intermission. Jackets have taken 7 shots, 4 on target. Only 2 shots for Wilmington so far. They rattled the left post, but unable to bring one home, and the Jackets dodged that early bullet, still level.
They did, and I think it's a situation where obviously you want to go back to what they did at the beginning of the game, but when they come out in the second half, the Yellow Jackets are really just going to have to focus on not playing kickball. And every time they've played kickball this year, they've fallen into the hands of some other teams, and it really hasn't worked with their game, and they have ended up losing those games. So it will be crucial for them to get it back on the ground, do what they did earlier, play it back, play it out the other side, try to whip in a good cross around the 6.
All right, we'll step aside during halftime. No score here on BWYellowJackets.com.